Cairo, Seattle.
I'm on this one.
Hello. Yes, it is I, says me. And all who agree are more than three because they we.
Yes, it is I, says me. And all who agree are more than three because they're we. Yes. Yo, I'm in the house now for sure.
That's off of The Chronic.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a number for Chael?
No.
No, that's too bad. I was going to say you should text him and see if he'd call in. I did see that Chael signed with Bellator. I also saw his declaration about what weight he's going to be fighting at.
Said he wants to fight in 3 divisions.
Gangster weight is what he said.
Didn't see that. I saw that he wanted to fight Rory McDonald. He wanted to fight Tito Ortiz. And who was the other one he wanted? Well, he was talking about 3 weight divisions.
Is Tito still a fighter?
No.
Yeah, I mean, that should be stated, right? Somebody that comes out and declares that you want to fight Tito Ortiz. Like, at least if you're going to do that, call out Wanderlei Silva, who is theoretically
That's the other
still,
one. That's the other one,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Wanderlei Silva. But, yeah, Tito, come on, man. I mean, he was at one point the face of MMA. He was the face of the UFC at one point. And
like 15 years ago.
Well, I said at one point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's been in the recent past, but I used to like him a lot, and I've really grown to dislike him because he. I mean, listen, I don't fault a fighter for eroding skills. That happens. Age happens. But this guy, after every freaking fight, would give you the list of injuries he went into camp with. Well, I had a C5, C6 fusion. I had a L7, a L8, whatever the hell he's talking about. It was never. You know what, man? The guy beat me. And we've talked about this before. My angst with some of these fighters that are just full of excuses, and he may be completely accurate. He may be telling the truth every single time, but it gets so redundant and boring to hear about how you just gutted it out just to step in the cage. And the whole fight, the whole promotion leading up to it was, it's the best I've ever felt, and I finally got my neck fixed. I finally got my back fixed, and I can do all these things I couldn't do before. And then you lose, and then it's, well, listen, I mean, I really couldn't use my left hand during training, and I really couldn't do this because I had this bulging disc, and enough.
See,
Tired of it.
It's the lead up to the fight that bothers me more than the excuses afterwards. It's the lead up and the explanation of how it's going to be different this time because of how healthy I am. I'm like, I'm on to this. I've heard this. Well, about your last 7 fights about how healthy you were.
I'd say it's more than that. And the other part is, I mean, I guess it's not a fair expectation to expect an athlete to come on and go, well, I'm going to do the best I can, but I've got a really jacked up neck, or my back is really, really hurting. So we'll see what happens. They're not going to say that. So I understand it. But the emphasis he puts on, I am finally healthy. I finally got my neck fixed. I finally got my back fused, or whatever the hell he's had. And then for him just to run down the list of injuries he was fighting with, and it's a miracle I could get in there kind of tone to his voice, it's maddening.
I give Tito a lot of credit for the career he forged, and he, in many ways, is the advent of the modern fighter as a businessman. Somebody who, and even through the contract disputes with the UFC and all of the different things, he's been a really important person for how you build your career. The fact is, though, his career as a relevant fighter was done 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he hasn't been relevant in so long. And
but he's still a name, so it's still someone that gets
But he goes to Bellator. That's where fighters that used to be go.
Yes.
With a couple of exceptions.
You've got
the young guys. Well, the young guys that are coming up, I'm not talking about them. And somebody like Benson Henderson, who's still in his prime.
Yeah.
Matt Mitrione is still in his prime. He was not an elite level, top notch, but he's not washed up. Where you're looking at some of the goofy fights they put on with, Shamrock versus Gracie, the combined age of 175. I mean, it's just, enough of that stuff. Enough of that.
Dada 5000.
Oh, and Kimbo Slice. I mean, they put on the freak show fight, and they'll sign fighters that are past their prime, whether it's Koscheck, whether it's it's unfortunately a lot of the cast-offs from the UFC where I see Dana White and those guys probably going, yeah, help yourself. Go ahead. Knock yourself out over there.
Now, the one thing I am interested to see Chael fight Wanderlei, and it's really less about the actual fight and more about the lead up to it. Chael, his ability to taunt all of Brazil might be the greatest feat of MMA. It's really, we should put together, in fact, I'll do that for the next episode. I'll put together some of his greatest hits because some of the things he said, this was the lead up to the Anderson Silva fight, when he talked about something he said about all of Brazil and being a backwater country and Portuguese being only slightly more complicated than Pig Latin. And then Ariel.
And the Nogueira brothers.
The Nogueira brothers, that was fantastic when he saw them when they first arrived in America and Little Nog was petting a bus saying, "Whoa, big fella." He tried to feed it a carrot. And then Ariel Helwani asks him about it. And Chael goes, "Now, Ariel, that was a misunderstanding." He goes, "I chose a venue very specifically because I didn't want Brazil to. You can't blame me for that. I picked it. I said it on the internet. I had no idea Brazil had computers. if I had any idea that they had computers down there, I would have never said something like that. It was not intended." He's
the
truly,
best. When it comes to that, he's the best. I mean, Conor's good and entertaining, but in terms of just really clever shots, Chael's the king. He's the king. He speaks much better than he fights. I mean, if you talk about who he is as a fighter, he was good.
Mm-hmm.
He was. I mean, listen, he gave Anderson Silva the biggest scare of his life. He should have won that fight. Didn't happen that way. But that was his high water mark. Everything else, you kind of go, okay, he went out there and just got abused by John Jones and Rashad Evans. And by his own admission, he kind of quit. He took that shot and said, make it a business decision. I'm out of here. So he's not a guy I would say was an elite level fighter, a consistent name where you got to go through him to get to the belt or he's the likely next guy. That moment with Anderson Silva was his high water mark, but he is wildly entertaining, and you're right. The build-up to whichever fight he gets in Bellator, whichever the first one is going to be absolute must-watch.
I will say this. The first time I met Chael, and it's 10 years ago now, I was in Las Vegas. It was for the weigh-in. Chris Leben, which tells you how long ago it was. Chris Leben was a rising contender. It was before he'd fought Anderson Silva. Leben made weight. Chael was on that card. He was fighting a guy named Trevor Prangley, who I believe is from South Africa. But Prangley had beat him twice before, and he fights Chael. Chael goes to the weigh-in. Everybody else is all zonked out. Leben's got to gain 15 pounds in like 6 hours. And Chael comes out to lunch with us with his mom. And he's got business slacks on. He could not have been a nicer, more... He talked about his career in real estate, which is something that he did. And it's so funny to see. And it's not like he puts on a show, but he developed a character in many ways. And I think that character is an extension of him. Like, I think that smart aleck, that strain of is part of him. But he's always been a wildly... He's a truly interesting figure. And I know the drug testing, his ability to even turn that, the fact that he got a 2-year ban for steroids. And then when he talked about, because he entered the UFC's drug testing protocol.
Yeah, USADA.
Because you have to do that for 4 months before you fight with him. And he tells one of the reporters that he thinks he should be graded on a curve. Since he tested positive for 4 substances last time, it should be okay if he only has 1.
Yeah.
Because it shows he's getting off of it.
And I think he said he holds the record. Somebody said you had 3 different substances, and he said, no, it was actually 4. I think I hold the record.
It's true.
I mean, he is so unique, and you're right about who he is when he's not in the cage, because he's come and trained with us a few times, and he's just like any other guy. Just hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Put a face to the voice. All that. I mean, he's very humble. Everybody want to take pictures and talk to him, and he there's none of that bombast. That was just he's a very normal. He's very smart. He's a very smart guy. So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to market a fight. He knows how to sell a fight, and he'll do that. Even though he's 39 years old now, going to Bellator. I don't know what he has left. I don't know what he's got left, but he will be entertaining at least up until that first bell.
I look forward to watching his fight. So 2 things we're going to try. We'll try to get in touch with Chael, even though we don't have his number. We'll do that for next week, and I will put together a list of my favorite things he's said to people, because it's at least really, really compelling to hear the way he's insulted people and the way
even
he's done
interviewers.
things.
And I mean, he's hung up on me, and then he's afterwards been, hey, thanks for playing along. That was cool. But we would do the interview, and at the end of the interview, hey, Chael, thanks for coming on. He goes, whoa. Sounds like you're trying to end this interview. I'll tell you when the interview's over. What'd you do last night? Did you go to your girlfriend's house? Oh, no, you didn't. I was there. I was like, he said things like that, and then he ultimately ends up hanging up on you.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays the game, and it's hilarious. And I remember watching him do an interview with the guy in Canada. And
Landsberg. Isn't it? Is that his name?
Guy? I can't remember, but
it's off the record or on the record. It's the guy that looks like the melted David Hasselhoff.
Yeah. I think that's him. And they were going back and forth about something, and Chael finally goes, "Hey, whoa. You better take the bass out of your voice, son." That's a great line.
I believe the exact line is, "You better take the bass out of your voice because you're talking to an American gangster."
From the mean streets of Westland, Oregon.
That's the best part. Oh, so we'll do that next week. This week, we've got Henry Cejudo, kind of.
What happened? What happened?
It's a good question. Henry is one of the coaches on this season of The Ultimate Fighter, which is 3 episodes deep now. They've done 4 fights.
Yeah.
If I've watched the most, because I just watched the most updated one.
Yeah, with Demetrious Page.
Which was a great fight.
Yeah, I was glad to see him lose.
He's kind of cocky.
He was very cocky for a guy who lost 3 in a row and was basically cut from the UFC. They talked about him like he was the reigning king and he'd done all these things. I mean, I give him respect for his career, but come on, it's not like he was Demetrius Johnson or George St-Pierre.
He did fight Demetrius.
And he lost.
In WEC, and Demetrius choked him out. He has the nickname the Angel of Death. They did stop the fight too soon, though.
They did. It was
although the dude just kept kicking him in the liver.
He was putting a beating on him. He was slowly just breaking him down. And that last one, you just saw him double over. Yeah, it was definitely a quick stoppage, but he was going to lose.
Yeah. So let's set the scene. Is that Bob's show is going on, Bob Gras and Tom, and it was at 1:00. We were offered an interview with Henry Cejudo, which is a pretty big get. I mean, he's fought Demetrious Johnson. He got destroyed by Demetrious Johnson in his title fight, but I think that is his only loss in MMA. He's a former gold medal wrestler, the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Really, really accomplished fighter. I think his record is 10-1. He's got 5 bouts in the UFC. So you get offered that opportunity and you're going to jump at it, but you're kind of at the mercy in these sort of things with the person who's arranging the interview. And we arranged to get him on, and 2 things happened. One, my questions weren't recorded, which makes it problematic for airing the interview.
Right.
But the real bigger issue, because you can fake that. I mean, if we get his audio, we can pretend. I can actually make myself sound better so I'm not stumbling around and stuff. But here's the second part. You're going to hear it at the beginning. The first voice you'll hear is Isaac, the PR guy who sets this up. And then you're going to get an idea of the quality of interview that we were working with.
Hey, Henry, you're on with Danny. All right. Cuban sandwich? It's pretty cool. Cuban sandwich?
I've already asked a question there, and I believe he's giving a sandwich order.
Yeah, I heard soup and sandwich or something sandwich.
And it's very clear it's a speakerphone. It's very clear that we're on speakerphone. Maybe it's in an office. Maybe it's in some part of the gym. But that kind of set the tone. So
you asked him a question, and he has yet to respond.
Yes, and so we crank the volume, because then we're like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure what happened. I'm shouting in that little room out there at Seahawks headquarters, which is where I was doing the interview from. I crank up the list, like the tab or lever or whatever you call it.
The
fader is I don't even know what the fader is called.
The tab.
Yeah, it's the little dialy thing. So I moved the fader up as high as it could go, and I'm basically shouting at him to try and get to it. And so the first question, I decided we're dealing with some. I've got to just make it really clear. How is being a coach different?
It's been like I said, for the 15, for the 20 years of my life that I've been wrestling, it's been about me. I think for the first time in my life, you have a different level of respect for coaches, how much they sacrifice for their athletes. So I think for me, it was it builds a whole other aspect of my character, made me more grateful. And at the end, it let me know that coaching is probably not for me. Good guys and whatnot, but it's stressful.
What'd you get out of that, Bob?
It's stressful. He's got respect for coaches. Garbled. I didn't catch the first part.
So he said that coaching is not for me. He said I had to listen to it a couple times. For the better part of 15 or 20 years, he's been a wrestler. He hasn't been coached. Going through this is stressful, and it's probably not for me. which is an interesting way to start the interview. I appreciate the honesty, but that's now as an interviewer, what would be your tactic here, Bob? You have a lot more broadcast experience.
Well, I would
than
follow up on what is it about coaching that you don't like, or what is it about? What do you mean it's not for you? What aspect of it is not for you? And are we going to see you quit at some point during this season?
So
sounds like he wants to tap out on coaching.
That would have been a better angle for me to take. Instead, I decided to ask him about the dude that got his brains beat in that Henry really wanted to draft.
The guy he trained with.
The guy that he called his younger brother.
Yeah.
And he ends up picking the fighter from Brazil. And I think everybody knows the format. There's 16 fighters, and they're all world champions, Bob.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
They're all world champions, including the Tachi Palace champion.
That's right. That's right. And I love that they go to Dana White when they talk about each one. They go, that's one of the best promotions out there. It's one of my favorite promotions out there. I mean, that's a quality promotion. I mean, some of these I'm like, what the hell is that? I've never heard of that. He's the Alaska champion. Okay.
Yeah, that dude got hammered.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that dude got tuned up. And I actually he might be, of all the personalities of the fighters, he's one of the guys I like the most, is the kid from Alaska.
Yeah, seemed pleasant enough.
Yeah. The different sort of guys. So this is a fighter who fights in Arizona and is from Tijuana, I believe. He's from Baja and is really good friends with Henry Cejudo. So I asked him.
He's a training partner.
Yeah, and I asked him about that fight and what it was like to be a coach and watch his fighter get beat up.
It was terrible, man. It's like try watching your boy get beat up, and you're not able to say anything. I mean, it hurt. It hurts a little bit because he was one of my main training partners, and the reason why we didn't pick him first was because just strategic purposes. We knew Benavidez was really going to pick him. But, the format changed. I picked Pantoja, and so happened to be Pantoja's number 1 seed. Ran it with 16 and ended up fighting. So I think that's the trick of it, is anyways, it backfired on us, and that's what happened.
That's what we're dealing with, Bob.
The hell is going on back there?
Everything being equal, I would have been much better off asking him a follow-up question about coaching.
Right.
About asking him why coaching didn't appeal to him instead of Brandon Moreno, who you hear him mention. It's Alexandre Pantoja, who was champion from Brazil, one of the pretty legitimate promotions down in Brazil, and is the number 1 seeded fighter, whereas Brandon Moreno was the 16th seed. So this is, you get an idea for the challenge we had in the interview.
Yeah. How long did you go with him?
We went 10 minutes.
10 minutes of this.
You're gonna hear it at the end, though. He took us off speaker, and it got a lot better. But at this point, we're 2 questions in, and so I'm getting a little desperate. I'm like, what? We got to get something we can pull out of this. So I decided to ask him very artfully, is Joseph Benavidez as big a dick as it seems?
Well, I mean, I'll let the people decide that. I mean, that's pretty harsh, but I guess if you smell like one, you probably are one.
Smell like one?
Which gets really weird. That's really weird, right?
It's a little goofy, yeah. It's a little...
But I guess it's sort of the, if it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, but you smell like one?
You smell like a duck. Yeah, I'm not sure the odor that Joseph Benavidez is emanating there, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think Henry's a guy who's naturally good at taking shots at people and being sarcastic. He seems to be a very sincere, humble, genuine guy, and that doesn't seem to be his demeanor to really fire shots at people and be sarcastic.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
As evidenced by that one.
That's true. The other part is that it's a little awkward in the show. It's a little awkward between he and Benavidez.
You think Benavidez is just trying to drum up interest and trying to make it interesting and trying to make people like tension and they like to feel like, ooh, man, these two don't like each other. Did you hear what he said to him? Did you hear did you see what he said? I feel like he's trying to manufacture some level of tension, because if he doesn't, Cejudo's not going to say anything bad about him. He's going to be his buddy. He's going to be his pal. He's going to be very friendly. And I don't know that that's going to be great for viewership. So there's a part of me that thinks Benavidez, so I need to spice this thing up because this guy is not going to give us anything.
There's part of me that thinks that. There's also part of me that thinks that there's a legitimate tension between the two. And it probably deals with a little bit of ethnicity. And Benavidez doesn't speak Spanish. Cejudo makes that a big part of his appeal on the show. He kind of, it seemed to me that what set Benavidez off was in the second episode where Cejudo makes a reference to him about being a role model for the Mexican-American community. Yeah. And that Benavidez then starts kind of poking back, where he basically says, you're saying what you're supposed to say, that you're not an authentic personality. You're giving us platitudes.
Right.
And you're saying, and then as Cejudo starts saying things to him, it's actually pretty effective trash talk by Benavidez, where he's like, oh, see, now I'm good in school. And it obviously annoys him. It might be true that they're just trying to drum up interest. I did come across feeling like, man, why does Benavidez got to be like that? Like
he's coming off like the jerk, without question. I think he knows that. He's a smart guy. I really think it's 90% manufactured because Cejudo's not going to give you. He's not going to engage. It's not going to be Diaz and Conor. And I think fighters are starting to see the value of drama, and they're starting to see the value of that animosity or perceived animosity. And there's none between these two. There's none going into this thing. I was excited to see the show because I love the show. I love MMA, and I'm familiar with both these guys. But there was no, oh man, what's it going to be like when these two get next to each other? There was none of that. So I really feel like Benavidez is trying to do something to get people interested and get them fired up to want to see those two go at it.
It's Fight, an MMA podcast. Bob Stelton, I'm Danny O'Neill. We're in the cage, kind of, with Henry Cejudo. We're actually on the speakerphone in the cage with Cejudo. It gets better, and we'll keep talking about this. We continue next.
When are you leaving for California?
It's booked at 7. I don't think I want to get up that early.
7 a.m.?
Yeah.
Why so early?
I like to get down there, but I think the trade-off, I think I'm going to fly down at like 2.
Where do you stay?
I'm staying in Marina Del Rey, I think.
It's my old spot.
I like Marina Del Rey.
Well, then you should get there at 7 and spend the day, go to Venice Beach and people watch. That's the best.
Yeah, it is. There's some freaks there.
Oh, I used to work out at Gold's, and I'd walk across the street and just go hang out. I'd just sit there and drink water and watch people. Good hour. After every workout, literally, I'd walk over there and just, okay, let the show begin. You're doing good work over there, sir. You jumping on the broken bottles. That's fun. You setting yourself on fire. I like it. I like it. I'm going to have some cash tomorrow. I've got no cash.
What's the craziest thing you saw? Like down on Venice Beach?
Those were both true.
You saw a guy set himself on fire?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a guy who literally was just going to different trash cans. He had a giant bed sheet out there, and he was just taking bottles and breaking them on there. And he built the tension up. The crowd slowly developed around him and got bigger and bigger, and he kept throwing more bottles, and he had a chair that he was standing on, and he was just hyping it up. He's going to jump on, and he did. He literally jumped into the pile of glass, walked around. But the build-up to it literally took a half an hour, and he got more and more people. And he's like, "What do you think of this bottle? You like this bottle? Okay, this bottle. Give me that bottle. Give me that bottle. Hey, get some money." And people are throwing him money before he ever did anything. And this pile of broken glass is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he was kept building up on it, and he finally just jumped off a chair into it and started walking around in it.
Was he bloody afterwards?
I didn't see any cuts.
Oh God.
Yeah. I saw some lady who was just in a cardboard box, who had a silver, it looked like foil wrapped around cardboard, almost like a shark fin on her head. And it looked like an empty box as I'm walking by, and she'd just pop up. And then she'd go back down.
Like a land shark?
Wouldn't say anything. Wouldn't do anything. And she looked nuts. I mean, she looked nuts. And people were throwing dollars, just walking by, giving her dollars. It was like a refrigerator box, and all of a sudden she'd just go.
Oh, that's a riot.
I'm just sitting in a chair watching. Is she saying anything? I couldn't tell if anybody was being spoken to. Yeah, it was just, that's the best.
Do you think it attracts crazy people because the weather's so good?
The weather's awesome, and everybody expects to see some element of that there.
Yeah.
So they're sort of welcomed, right?
Yeah.
They're not who's this crazy person? There's another person who's crazier than you are, a block away. You just go. It's where people go for performance art.
I guess it's similar because Berkeley, Telegraph Avenue, right there off of campus, is similar to that where it's expected that you're going to have people shouting and screaming and stuff, but that's more political. Like that's where someone who's
protesting
that's someone who you have to be crazy with an agenda.
Yeah,
like,
these people are just crazy with zero agenda other than trying to get money or sometimes they're not even I don't think she was asking anybody for money. I didn't see a sign because I walked by her just to see if she was speaking to people and saying something. No, just and then back down. All right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so maybe you should just stick to the early flag.
Maybe I will.
If you're in Marina Del Rey, that's awesome. Man.
Yeah.
You're right there.
Yeah, I love Marina Del Rey.
Oh, I love living there. It was the best.
All right, it's Fight and MMA Podcast. I'm Danny O'Neill along with Bob Stelton, and we're now 4 bouts in to this season of The Ultimate Fighter. We've also got Henry Cejudo, kind of. No, seriously, it's going to get better. You're going to hear at the end when he takes us off speakerphone. It gets significantly better. I've really enjoyed this season. I always like the show. I'm a sucker for The Ultimate Fighter.
So am I. Love it.
And you see the guys from around. I think my favorite part so far has been Benavidez training the Japanese fighter. The guy who
doesn't speak English?
Yeah, the guy that looks like he looks like Sakuraba.
Oh, that's right. And Dana said that.
He looks really similar.
Yeah.
The way his ears flared out even and all of that. And they're grapple, yes? You want to grapple? No?
Yeah.
And they're making hand motions to grapple.
And then they do the interview with the camera and say, oh, yeah, our communication's going well. We just use a lot of hand signals and stuff. And then they show video and I'm thinking, that doesn't appear to be going well.
He can't tell if the Japanese fighter wants to wrestle or not.
Yeah, because was he injured or he was going to, I can't remember if he was injured or if he just wanted to save his energy and not risk getting injured. But you want to grapple? No? You do. Grapple? Just doing hand signal. I'm like, what? This is pantomime. What's going on here? This is crazy.
And then he fought the champion from South Africa, who was actually a lot more skilled than I thought he was going to be. He couldn't deal with being on his back.
They call him Zulu?
Zulu.
Yeah.
He was a pretty good striker, though. I was impressed with his skill level.
Yeah, he was okay. He was okay. But once he was brought to the ground, it became very clear he had no idea what to do. He had no idea, and that's where I sort of scoff at, everybody's a world champ. And again, I give everybody credit. Anybody who steps into that cage, you get my respect. Having said that, trying to portray these guys, and I understand you have to build up the credibility of these guys, but you see how limited some of them are, and you see how green some of them are, yet we're saying, yeah, he's the world champion, or he's the champion of this promotion and this promotion. You got to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, you see in some of them the gap that exists between their skill level and what you watch almost every weekend with the UFC. And even Bellator, for that matter, with a lot of their young fighters, really talented fighters.
Do you think this is the best way to find someone that can compete with Demetrious Johnson?
I feel like they've run out of other options. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, what other? You've got Dana White doing his show, looking for a fight, so they're out there scouting talent, at all weight divisions, and then he's cleaned out his division. There really is no intrigue to anybody that exists in that division right now. I mean, all those competitors will say, well, yeah, I'm the guy. I can beat him. He's beat everybody, some of them twice. So what are you left to do? I think it does make it interesting, and it does sort of prop him up even more as being this great. This is what we've been reduced to. We've got to find people from around the world and get them to, sort of king of the hill. The last one standing is the one that's going to fight Demetrius, and we still feel like they have no shot. I know Dana's doing his part during the show to say, now this is a guy who could give Demetrius a lot of problems. This is a guy who could beat him. He has to say that about each and every one of these guys, and I feel like if we were able to pull Dana aside in an honest moment, what do you think? Any of these guys beat Demetrius? He'd say, no.
The part about it I wonder, though, is that because letting guys who just get to the top of the division as it exists now and then take their turn at Demetrious Johnson, that might not be the best way to find a guy who specifically could give Demetrius problems. I think there's an idea. The part about this show, because I agree with you, I don't think it's going to happen. The part about the show that's intriguing to me, though, is that you're really seeing very, very raw guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get some seasoning and if they get an opportunity, that they're going to be people it's a great way to introduce the next generation of stars rather than finding a guy that's going to work his way up the card. But maybe it is going to produce a sort of one-off fight that's not going to be very competitive.
Yeah, but as you said, you might get a couple of contenders out of this group of fighters who eventually become guys that are competing in that division. But as I look at it so far, and we're still early in the season, I don't see anybody in there that I go, that guy really could give him problems. I mean, Damasio Page was the guy with the most experience that fought Demetrius when Demetrius was way young back in the WEC before he was with Hume and everybody. I mean, he's a completely different fighter now. I mean, he is the best in the world now. And even back then, as green or raw as Demetrius was, he choked him out. So the fact that they're sort of propping up this guy who was, an older veteran who was cut from the UFC, and he seemed to be the most likely guy to get it done, that to me speaks to the level of talent that's there in comparison to Demetrius.
You also have a formula issue here where you're getting a title shot at the end of it. Usually guys graduate from the Ultimate Fighter to the nether regions of cards, and then we watch them
way
go.
up.
And this is going to be the one exception to that was the year where they had a bunch of former UFC fighters who then it was kind of given a second chance.
Right.
It's the one that Sarah won, and then Sarah ends up upsetting George St-Pierre. We asked Cejudo about the likelihood that the guy at the end of this is going to be able to give Demetrious Johnson. He's still on speakerphone, so you're going to have to adjust your ears or your expectations. The idea that the guy that wins this show is going to have an opportunity. What are the realistic chances he could beat Demetrious?
You know what? Everybody has every fighter has a fighter's punch. And anybody could lose. It's happened before. This is the second time that there is done this. George St-Pierre fought Matt Serra. Matt Serra was the promoted fighter. One there got the title shot, and he ended up knocking out George St-Pierre. I mean, it's happened before. A lot of people are overlooking this show. There's no way, man. You could never overlook anything. That was the sport of mixed martial arts. When you think you're conquering the mountain, be aware, man. Someone's getting ready to pull you down. And I think in George St-Pierre's position, that he just happened to get caught and he lost the fight. And that could happen this season. You guys could see somebody lose it all. You guys could see Demetrious Johnson lose his pound-for-pound crown.
I got the gist of what he was saying. I think I lost the entire middle. He brings up St-Pierre and Sarah, as you did, as the example. It can happen. It has happened. But, yeah, people have been struck by lightning, too. It's possible. It just doesn't happen very often, right? So it's in fighting, he's right. Anything, one punch changes everything. It could happen. Is it likely? Absolutely not. Would I bet on it? Absolutely not. I feel like it's the play-in game in the NCAA tournament. Who's playing for the right to be the victim for Duke? Who's going to be the warm-up, the tune-up for Michigan State or whoever, and they're going to go out there and beat them by 50? This is sort of what it feels like for me. You're sort of playing for the right or fighting for the right to go in there and get your name in lights and get a little attention you wouldn't otherwise get, and you're going to get tuned up. You're going to get abused by the best fighter in the entire world.
Would you have punted on the interview after that one? After that answer and what you just said?
I think I would have paused and said, hey, Henry, is there a way to get you to pick up the phone because we're having a hard time understanding?
So here's the second. That's the second thing I need to know is that when I get in that situation before, I need to ask.
Because you're taping. You're not obligated to plow through it because there's an audience there. You're under no obligation to sit there and go, I'm going to make the best of it. You can say, all right, we're going to pause for a moment. This sounds awful. Can we call you back or can you pick up the phone because we can't hear you?
Now, I didn't ask, but we did receive an improvement. And if you go, we talked to him. You mentioned this, and we started talking on the show talking about Tito Ortiz and the excuses fighters make, and that Henry Cejudo was incredibly gracious after he got destroyed by Demetrious Johnson.
He was awesome. That's where I really grew to sort of love this guy because I love a good sport. I love a guy with integrity. I love a guy that's got some. Is secure enough to say, you know what, man, he beat me. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? He beat me. I have such appreciation for that. To me, that goes so much further, and I'm surprised at how many guys don't do it. They want to throw out, Tito Ortiz. I had this. Nate Diaz. Well, I could barely train. I would have taken me out earlier because I was worse than the first. I mean, it's enough.
Knicks are better though. I mean, Nate Nate will go how he's limited in training. Nick goes straight up, there was a spy in my camp.
Yeah. Those guys have never lost a fight. There's always some shenanigans, or even they'll make fun of the way the guy, Carlos Condit, I didn't know he was going to throw all these little kicks and stuff. What do you mean you didn't know? It's MMA. Just take a loss. Just embrace it. Hey, I lost, man. I am motivated. I'm going to come back. I'm going to tune that guy up. He got the best of me. I'm going to get him next time instead of, well, I couldn't do this because this was hurt. And I'm sure all of that is true, but it's true for every fighter. You hear every one of these guys say, you never go into the cage 100%. It never happens. You're dealing with something, some more severe than others. But to prop that up and throw it out there and say, but I'm not making excuses. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Lose with some grace.
But when Nick Diaz fought George St-Pierre throughout his training, he was able to throw that submission on everybody.
Landing it on everybody.
And somehow George St-Pierre just happened to know it was coming and had the perfect defense for it. It's very clear there was a spy in his camp.
He couldn't have been better than you. He couldn't have possibly been a guy who trained his ass off and been better than you. He had to have been cheating on some level.
And Henry Cejudo, the former gold medalist, 2008 Olympics, he loses to Demetrious Johnson, gets destroyed by Demetrious Johnson.
Knee to the body.
And it's his first loss in the UFC, and he couldn't have responded better. We asked him about that. Well, not we. I asked him about that, and I believe this is where the audio significantly improves.
No, I respect him before we fought. I respect him afterwards. That doesn't change. I think he's a good champion. He's a good champion. He's done well. I mean, and if somebody could beat me the fashion that he did, he deserves all the credit in the world. I can't take anything from him. I think he's a great fighter. I think he set the bar high, and that's all there is to it. If you beat me, you're a better fighter. You're a better fighter than me that night. And I've always been a sore loser, to be quite frank with you. I think as you get older, you become a little more mature. It kind of changes a little bit. That he has put in the time. He has sacrificed his family, his life for this, and that's what he's lived for. And he deserves. You deserve what you get. And in my situation, I got to get better. There's no excuses. Time is on my side, which is a good part.
Love that. First of all, I love the sound quality. I could actually understand what he was saying, but how do you not love that? How do you not appreciate that? I mean, that's a guy that's competed at the highest levels of his sport in wrestling, a gold medalist, as you talked about, a guy who's competing at the highest level of this sport, and showing that level of graciousness and honesty. In honesty, I don't know how people listen to that and just don't go, you know what? That's class. That's a class individual right there.
Do you think it's something about the fighter's mentality that you have to make yourself feel invincible to be able to get in that case? It's a huge risk.
Sure. There's
a huge vulnerability. And the psychological sort of workup that you have to do to get into that makes it difficult for you to concede afterward that the other guy was better. Because it seems to me that one of the things I really like about MMA, they get to the end of a bout, and there's usually, as hostile as the lead up to it can be, there's usually a mutual respect there.
Yeah.
That you each took that chance. This is the way the fight sorted itself out. And there's that mutual respect there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's just tough in those moments afterwards, or do you think it's a sort of an excuse making and identity building for their next bout?
I think it's both. I think some guys really have a hard time grappling with the fact that I lost. How did I lose? I did everything right. I put my heart and soul in this, and I came out and I don't agree. Or, if it is a close decision, I don't mind somebody saying that, saying, well, I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I felt like I got the better of it, but, and you've heard a lot of guys say that. I'm in the middle of it. It's hard to tell. I need to go back and watch the fight, but it felt like I was getting the better of the exchanges, or I was doing more damage. I can live with all of that. It's the guys like the Diaz brothers who maintain even months and years later, he didn't beat me. Those judges are terrible. They're out to get me, this or that or the other. Again, the injury thing. It drives me nuts. It just in the heat of the moment, I understand it more, but upon further reflection, when they look at the fight and the tape and you still hear the same nonsense about spies in my camp and the judges against me and, whatever other Diaz excuse has been out there, it becomes boring and tiresome. And the same with the injury thing, with Tito and, I was just lucky to get in there kind of attitude. I really appreciate a guy like Cejudo saying what he said, and Rashad Evans did it. Daniel Cormier couldn't have been more gracious with a guy he clearly does not like. That is real animosity between John Jones and Daniel Cormier. And Daniel Cormier lost that fight. There was no excuse. There was no, he cheated, the judges, my injuries, none of that. I mean, he couldn't have been, and he's really resisted jumping all over Jones after every Jones screw-up. He's had so many opportunities to lay him out verbally in public with all the screw-ups, and he doesn't. He takes the high road every time. I have respect for guys that sort of conduct themselves with a level of class and honesty, and obviously not every fighter is that way.
No, they're definitely not. Cejudo, the final question to him here, and you get improved audio, so we're actually going to be able to understand him, was about what he plans to do, what he hopes to do. Going forward, he's going to have a fight with Benavidez, and...
Tell you who I'm pulling for.
Yeah, Cejudo?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I liked Benavidez before this. He's sort of turned me off a little bit, even though I feel like I understand why he's doing it. He's put me in a position to really root for Cejudo more than I already was, because Cejudo won me over with the way he conducted himself after the loss to Demetrius.
Well, he wants another crack at Demetrius.
My plans going forward is to become the best I could be, man. To beat Joseph Benavidez. And then take it from there into what the UFC has to offer. I really didn't fight Demetrious Johnson. He took me out. He hit me really early. He hit me with some clean knees to the body. So I really never had a chance to actually fight him and display my talent, my explosive style of fighting. So I look forward to fighting for the title again and challenging the pound for pound best fighter in the world, Demetrious Johnson.
I don't see it going any different the next time.
I see it going longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he could, if he didn't get hit with those shots, could he have made it more interesting if he were able to take Demetrius down? What his wrestling of? I just think Demetrius doesn't have a weakness. You get him on the ground, he gets back up. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got good submission defense. He's got good wrestling. Yeah, maybe just strictly wrestling match, Henry's going to be a little bit better, but I don't know if it's enough to get him a win. I don't know that he's going to be explosive enough to do what he wants to do against him. Demetrius is too electric. You know what I mean? He's just he's just too he's on a different level. He really is, and that's with all due respect to every other fighter. There are great fighters out there. He's just a step above. He just does everything a little bit better.
What if the UFC goes into the wilds of Russia to find a global champion, a man perfectly built to take down Demetrious Johnson? That's the next guy I want to watch fight. I want to watch the Russian. I hope he's crazy. Yeah. I hope he's an absolute nut. And I don't know why, but maybe it's Rocky IV. I imagine Russians as big punchers. Yeah. Like you ask him when he comes in there, I think he's going to have heavy hands.
It'll break you.
I think he's going to have heavy hands.
I don't know. If this search doesn't work, then what are they going to do? Are there any 125 pounders in WWE?
Oh God!
Is there anybody else out there that's a likely contender that they can bring in?
I almost brought that up because you mentioned Dana White and Matt Serra, the looking for a fight.
Yeah,
that they do, and that was how they found Mickey Gall, right?
Yep.
And
Sage Northcutt.
And that. Oh, really?
That was on their the pilot episode.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And now they're going to fight.
Maybe Sage is dealing with a staph infection, so.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty.
It is. It is, and it can keep you out for a while. So they were trying to, Mickey Gall was calling him out after.
Called him corny. It was actually pretty good.
Want to knock the spikes off his hair.
I think that dude's corny, it might be the first time that's ever been used. I thought it was very effective.
Mickey Gall's smart, man. This is a nobody from nowhere in the eyes of the MMA world, right? Nobody knows who he is, but he calls out CM Punk. Great way to get your name in lights and get people to understand who you are. Then you go out there and destroy CM Punk the way most people thought you would. And then you immediately get in the cage and start throwing out expletives and call out, the young phenom and Sage Northcutt. Smart guy, getting his name out there, getting people talking about him, and starting to go. You know what? That seems like a natural matchup. Two guys who were found in the same way. Both young guys, both seem promising. We've seen more of Sage than Mickey Gall, but he's smart to do that.
Now, you mentioned CM Punk. I think we've talked about this.
We talked about it before the fight. By the way, I got accused of being a Monday morning quarterback.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because after the fight, I went on Twitter. I said, hey, I give all the respect in the world to CM Punk for doing what he did. That takes a lot of guts. Having said that, this was a very predictable outcome.
Yeah, everybody knew what was going to happen, right?
And somebody said, I love all the people that come on here after the fact talking about they knew what was going on when there's no record of it online. I'm like, whoa. I said it on the air. I said it online. I said it on the podcast. And it's not I told you so. I felt like anybody who watched any video, even the small snippets we were given access to of CM Punk training, he's not a natural fighter. He might be a great athlete in terms of his ability and his endurance and things like that, but you watch him fight, you just watching him hit mitts. I'm going, it doesn't look right to me. It doesn't look right. He doesn't look natural. He doesn't look like there's a flow to the way he fights at all. But I give him, and what happened seemed very predictable. It ended kind of the way I thought it would. I thought he would stand. I didn't know he would just rush in the way that he did and get taken down. I thought they might exchange some blows and he'd feel him out a little bit. But, man, I mean, I don't know how you thought it was going to go a different way with a guy who's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, who's got some fights under his belt. I mean, CM Punk doesn't even have an amateur fight.
That's the part. I get it, and I have a lot of respect for how CM Punk handled it. And I thought that his speech was inspiring. I also felt that, okay, he made $500,000 for that. There's a lot of fighters that are a lot better.
That's just the disclosed purse,
Correct.
By the way.
Yeah, that there's a lot of fighters that have worked a lot harder, that have kind of come up through the ranks. And this was a bit of a novelty, and I'm not going to knock CM Punk for taking the opportunity because he challenged himself. At the same time, that was gimmicky. I don't want to see him on a UFC card again until he goes down and fight your way back up. Go through Legacy. Go through one of the other promotions. If they promote another fight of his, it is simply shameless. I don't want to say exploitation of his name because, I mean, look,
but
he's
a pro
wrestler. It's not competitive. It's not what the UFC is all about. It's not what's made the promotion good.
No, we talked about it in comparing Bellator to the UFC and saying, you've had these train wreck fights, these car crash fights that you can't look away from, but it's just awful. It's stupid. Shamrock and Gracie, Dada 5000 and Kimbo Slice. These are embarrassments. Sorry, but they are. That's Bellator. UFC hasn't really done that with the exception of James Toney, Randy Couture. Yep. You haven't really seen a fight you look at and go, what are you doing, man? Brock Lesnar, came in and actually beat some people, as much as he is a sideshow.
He was a trained championship level wrestler.
Right.
That he had all of the pedigree, that competitive, he wasn't a fighter yet, but the idea that he would become a fighter, that's a route that many guys, Henry Cejudo's traveled that route. Mm-hmm. Mark Coleman's traveled that route. CM Punk, a professional
and they had
wrestler.
Fights before they got to the UFC.
Exactly. Even Lesnar fought once before he got there, and then got Heath Herring, who was a legitimate guy, and Brock showed what a fighter he was in that.
Yeah, Punk had no. I mean, I thought there was and I could be wrong on this, but I thought there was a rule in place essentially that you needed at least 5 amateur fights and a winning record before you could be pro. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's what it was. I mean, he had no amateur fights.
Yeah.
And now you can't be an amateur. It's not like he can go back and be an amateur and get some experience. You're a pro now. That's it. That's over. You can't go back and be an amateur now.
Yeah, that's it. Good 39-year-old amateur.
Yeah, so I was caught between feeling bad for him because I thought the way he conducted himself leading up to the fight was very humble, very respectful. He wasn't out there, full of just, nonsense and pulling the WWE card, and I'm going to go in there and kill this guy. No, he was incredibly respectful. He trained for 2 years for this thing, and he was incredibly humble and respectful in defeat. So it's hard to hold anything against him. I sort of felt bad for him, but at the same time, he made $500,000 at minimum. That's without the pay-per-view back end, and who knows what that's going to be. So he made more than $500,000. That's the disclosed purse to go in there and basically get tuned up for 2 minutes.
And I'll say this. I have a lot of respect for him, and I totally understand the UFC do it. I'm going to lose respect for both him and the UFC if they promote another one of his fights out of the chute without him going and proving he's a viable fighter.
I could see it happening again. It'd be down the road. I don't think he's silly enough to jump back in there because you saw how far down he is in terms of skill level.
That's how all those fights would end. All the garbage that people talk about, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. If it's under MMA rules, how that fight ended is how every one of them will end, with the guy without the experience on his back getting his face smashed in.
Except it would be a lot more fun watching that. I would really enjoy it. I'd pay $99.95 for the pay-per-view to watch Floyd Mayweather go in there against anybody.
You know, we've never seen that. We've never seen someone who is like, how much would you be willing to pay to watch this person pretty certainly get their ass kicked?
Yeah, I'd pay a lot. I got my top three.
Okay.
Floyd Mayweather,
Uh-huh.
Kanye West, and Justin Bieber.
Okay. I don't know if I'm with you on Kanye.
Can't stand him.
Really?
Can't stand him.
I don't like Kanye, but
Overrated hack.
would it affect his musically?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you the insufferable part.
Listening
He's
to
a
him try to
talented-
sing. No, he's not. Listening to this fool try to sing, and he's out there with his stupid auto-tune, acting like he's a crooner. Stop it. You stink. You're awful. He's awful.
He's got a unique flow as a rapper, though. I'll give him credit. Like, it's as an MC, and then his beats. Would he still be able to make his beats if he got tuned up?
I don't care. I don't care. I don't like him as a musician. I don't like him as an individual. And watching him go into a cage and get absolutely destroyed would be so delicious.
Which guy would you pick to do it? Who would you want? Because you would have to pick someone that you would want that would do the most damage.
Oh, pick to do it to them?
Yeah. Who would you pick? Kanye West versus...
Well, what does Kanye weigh? About 155?
Oh, no.
Would he fight in the 55? You think he's 180?
Yeah, he's not in good shape.
He's going to be up there. Could he cut down to welterweight to 170?
Kanye West is not cutting any sort of weight. That's not happening.
Well, if he's at 185, then he's fighting your guy Michael Bisping, who's the champ.
Oh, dude, I'd pay to watch Michael Bisping get his... Hopefully Dan Henderson's going to do it.
What about Luke Rockhold? If he's at 85, Luke would go in there and just toy with him and, throw a couple of head kicks.
Is there room enough for both of their egos?
It would be so fun.
Yeah,
it would be so fun.
I'm going to come up with my list. My list of 3 that I would pay to watch get beaten up. We'll do that next time on Fight. I'll also have the best sound. I'll round up Chael's greatest hits. We'll see if we can get the American Gangster.
That's going to be a 2 CD set.
Yeah.
Man. There's a lot of material there.
We'll see if we can get the American Gangster to join us. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks to our sponsor, Emerald Queen. We look forward to talking to you next week on Fight.